welcome to this Nextgen Parenting Podcast that we are doing in the framework of this project. So my name is Aria Krauchenberg and I represent the European Parents Association, and I'm here today with Manan Basha, who did trainings on media and digital literacy with parents, and we are going to talk a bit about her experiences there. And my first question would be, what was the topic or the topics that came up most, that parents are most worried about when you were doing these trainings?
Okay. Hello Aria, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very happy to discuss such an important topic. So as you mentioned earlier, last year I've had the opportunity to have a training with parents from different backgrounds about digital safety and digital literacy. And throughout the conversations we had with parents in these sessions, something became very clear, which is that parents are really worried about their children's digital safety. And they mentioned a lot of concerns that occupy them. So they expressed concerns about online harassment. It's a problem that is very frequent now in the schools, but also online. And they express that it's sometimes more amplified online because children usually hide behind the screens, and they feel that they have the space and the freedom to say and do whatever they like because nobody's controlling them, nobody's holding them accountable. So there are a lot of problems that came up on this topic. They were also worried about their children's exposure to harmful content. So some platforms, even though they have restrictions, but children nowadays are really very good at bypassing these rules and restrictions, and parents really cannot take away the phones from their children. So children end up spending hours and hours on their phone, and parents cannot control what children see, so sometimes they find themselves facing sexual content, inappropriate content. So that's really something that worried parents a lot. There was also the social media pressure and the peer influence on social media. Students and kids spend a lot of time roaming and navigating these platforms, and they see their peers going on vacation, publishing their life habits, and sometimes they put pressure on their parents because they want to have the same lifestyle, they want to have the same things. So also this peer influence was something very problematic for some parents. And
When you say the peer influence, does that also concern, for example, body image and body shaming problems? Is that more for girls, or does that also concern boys? Were people talking about this kind of problems as well?
Mm-hmm. So the problems I mentioned earlier were very frequent for both, for boys and girls, but some parents who had girls mentioned that their girls tend to face additional forms of pressure and vulnerability online. They are exposed, let's say, to some different expectations from boys, some different risks also in digital spaces, and social media can intensify sometimes this pressure through the beauty standards, for example, or the comparison of the filters, likes, and online validation. And we noticed that girls sometimes tend to be more sensitive towards that, and they are more likely to experience body shaming and emotional manipulation online. And I think it's a frequent problem for girls because they are often socialized to avoid conflict, to avoid also facing their harassers, and to stay calm and silent and protect others' feelings, which makes it harder for them to set boundaries online or to report online abuse if it happens. So that's why the emotional impact of some social media tend to be more serious in girls' lives. And also social media, especially Instagram, for example, or TikTok, girls tend to use that more for not only for entertainment but also for social connection and their identity building. So they like to show what do they do in their daily lives, how do they look, to post their diaries. So that gives also, let's say, others more space
for attack.
Exactly. While I think if we compare, boys tend to post less on social media, but girls are really looking for this online validation where people send them likes, comments, oh, you look beautiful, oh, you look in certain way. So yeah, indeed, girls, as I said, are more vulnerable towards this.
And that has an effect on their mental health, of course, and then further on also maybe on academic achievement in schools and all these kind of things. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it has a whole tail of consequences that it can bring with them. What did parents say about what kind of solutions do they see, or what kind of support would they like? Because building children's resilience is obviously something that we need to build from a very early age. That's something that we have seen in other projects as well, that children need to be prepared gradually, not with a digital device from the very start, but with the unplugged activities to understand how these mechanisms, algorithms work. But what have parents found out themselves once they are in such a situation? What would they like to have as solutions or training?
So throughout the trainings, if there is anything we learn, is that parents are really looking for support. So they're feeling sometimes that they are alone in this journey and that their children online safety is their responsibility alone. And they came with the trainings really with a lot of fears and uncertainties, and it was reassuring for them to know it's not their responsibility alone. Like teachers, schools, communities, tech companies, they all play a key role in that. So parents expressed the need to understand better these topics, because sometimes they could name the problems they face, but they don't know it's something common that many children and parents face. So they expressed the need to learn more about these topics, their warning signs, how to start also these sensitive conversations with their kids, how to be better active listeners, more empathetic in their conversation with their kids, and how to create a safer environment at home, and also how to lead by example. I think that's very important. Many of them expressed also the need to have more trainings and better guidance from professionals, real like tech experts and digital trainers to help parents, let's say, navigate this journey. And they were also aware that technologies itself is something inevitable. It's not the enemy today. And digital spaces can really be a place to empower young people and to create opportunities for learning. And they realized also that digital literacy, and what we were talking about, is an essential skill that every parent needs to have. And as I said, something I really want to highlight is that creating a digital environment for kids, it's not the responsibility of the parent alone. It really requires a collaboration between families, schools, tech companies that we need to take and to hold accountable against these risks. And it should not only, I think, happen after something bad happens or occurs, but it needs something, we need more preventive measures and more guidance and more training in these topics. And it needs to be one of the normal and open conversations that we can have with our kids. And I think young people need also safe and educated adults about the topic that they can trust and they can reach out to without fear of being judged. Because if you understand your children's reality, if you speak their language, if you know their needs, then you will be better equipped and better able to support them throughout this journey.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for these insights. I think they're very valuable, and they confirm many things that we already knew before, that children will not go and talk to their parents if they are afraid that the parent will then take the mobile phone away. It is about empathetic listening and to be aware of what the child is actually living and trying to support them in a difficult situation. But what you mentioned about not being sure about how to go about sensitive topics, we were also part of other projects where we developed so-called door openers. Yeah, that were little stories that would help parents to start these kind of conversations. Yeah, because as you said, it's not so easy to sit down with your child and say, okay, now we're going to talk about, I don't know, pornography that you might encounter online. Yeah? First of all, children don't like to be seated down and to have this kind of talk. They really want to be taken seriously, so it's important to find the right moment when to approach these topics, but then also to take into account maybe the cultural background. Did you have any experience there? Because for some parents, some topics are really taboo topics, and it's very difficult for themselves to engage in these conversations, let alone to do that with their children.
Exactly. I think that's a very important point to highlight also, because I know in some culture there is this authority relations with parents and their kids where the parents only bans and sets rules and restricts something from their kids or punish when they do something wrong. So it's definitely something related to the cultural upbringing of parents, and they all have different parenting styles. So there is really, I think, the advice I would give in this case, that there is really no one-size-fits-all approach. Every parent knows their kids best, and I think it's about trying also different methods and different approaches and see what works best in your daily life, in your reality. So here we try to guide, we try to give tools to empower, but it's up to the parent, I think, to apply it in their daily lives.
Yeah, and to find something that really fits their reality.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not completely off what their daily life looks like. Yeah, I think that's very important. Also to see that things are always interconnected. So the cultural background, what the way you have been brought up, the way you want to bring up your children, all these things fall in line. Yeah, but as a general rule, I think what we can always tell parents and also tell to children: treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. That's a good advice offline, but it's also good advice online. But as you said, parents also play a big role as role models. And it's very difficult to get children off the mobile phone or to make them use it in a more responsible way if they don't see that with their parents or other trusted adults. Yeah. So I'm sure that parents' training is very, very necessary, because this is where it all starts, and of course also the schools and the teachers, and then, as you mentioned, big tech. Maybe we should talk a little bit about big tech as well. The European Union has already set up a number of regulations. Last but not least, the Digital Services Act, but also the Anti-Cyberbullying Action Plan and so on, because they are very much aware that the digital space is not a public space, but it's a private space. It belongs to companies. If you use social media, that is a private space of a company, and that they are responsible for that space. Yeah? It's a bit like if you drive around on somebody's parking lot. I mean, you have to respect the rules and regulations that are there, and we can only ask politics to make sure that also those big companies obey the rules. Yeah? So is that something that parents also mentioned, that they want big tech also to be held accountable for what is happening there? Because I mean, fake news and harassment and so on can be detected, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another important point that many parents mention is that these big tech companies are only concerned, of course, about their business models, and this algorithm thing, like, it feeds you more into the things that you want to see, and it's like a never-ending cycle of scrolling. They were really questioning, the ethical principles behind this and who designed these platforms. And they mentioned that maybe parents also and kids should be included and implicated in the code design process of this algorithm. I think we need to assess their needs, to hear from them also, so because you're designing something for them, so I think it's a very valid and important point that they should be included in that. And they were not aware also of the existence of digital safety regulations like the Digital Service Act, and they want really to know more about this. So I think there is indeed a need of awareness regarding that. Okay, at the EU level there are a lot of things that are being done on this topic. So I think also we need to communicate these things to parents so they are okay with it. We have progress, they're really taking us into account in the bigger picture. And yeah, as I said, it's really like a holistic approach, I think, cross-sectoral collaborations between tech companies, schools, communities and parents, and all like for the good of our kids and their safety online. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, we also found that we're all in this together, and it's a new phenomenon. It's not something like my child doesn't eat vegetables and I call grandma and I ask her. We're all in this together, finding out how we can do this best for our children and grandchildren and future generations. But it's a journey that we need to embark on and to try and, yeah, as you said, make it as positive for our children, but also for ourselves, because there are also many adults that ended up in some rabbit holes. Yeah, so I think we really need to work together to establish rules and regulations on the individual basis, of course, but then also, of course, for the platforms that they need to obey. Well, thank you very much for this interview. Thank you.
Thank you.